In the far reaches of a distant galaxy, a civilization unlike any other was quietly struggling to survive. Their planet, once a flourishing hub of culture and science, had slowly descended into chaos. For centuries, the alien society had faced problems they could not overcome on their own. Natural disasters were frequent and violent, tearing apart cities and displacing countless lives. Earthquakes so powerful that entire regions disappeared into the ground. Storms that lasted for months, and floods that swept away homes and farms had become normal. On top of that, their society was fractured by endless internal conflicts. Different factions and tribes fought over resources, territory, and control, leaving destruction and despair in their wake. People lived in constant fear, unsure if the next day would bring survival or death. The leaders of this alien civilization were intelligent, resourceful, and proud. They had tried everything within their power to save their world. Advanced technology, carefully planned evacuations, and even diplomatic negotiations among their warring factions had been attempted. But time was running out. Each day brought new disasters, and the planet's resources were dwindling rapidly. Food shortages were severe, clean water was scarce, and their energy systems were failing. The population was shrinking, and hope was fading. Every attempt to stabilize their world seemed to fail, leaving the leaders with only one option left: a desperate plea for help. Such a plea was not something they had ever sent before. Contacting other civilizations across the galaxy was rare and considered a last resort. They feared rejection or, even worse, hostile retaliation. Many civilizations ignored the distress signals of others, believing interference could be dangerous or unprofitable. But the alien leaders realized that staying silent would surely mean extinction. With heavy hearts, they activated an ancient and powerful communication system, sending a signal so far-reaching that it could cross the galaxy and reach even the most isolated planets. The message was simple but urgent. Their civilization was in grave danger, and they needed help, or they would perish entirely. This distress call traveled through space, carried by advanced technology designed to survive the vast distances and cosmic radiation that could easily destroy weaker transmissions. Light years away, it was picked up by a group of humans known throughout the galaxy as Death. Humans from their home planet had earned this nickname because their world was one of the harshest known places in the universe. Life on their planet was brutal and unforgiving. The air was toxic in some regions. Violent storms were a daily occurrence, and deadly creatures roamed freely. The humans there had developed extraordinary resilience and adaptability. They were known to survive conditions that would kill most species instantly. Every human, from a child to an elder, was trained to endure pain, fear, and the unknown. They were warriors, explorers, and survivors, capable of facing threats both natural and artificial with unmatched courage. When the distress signal reached them, it sparked immediate interest. The Deathworlders were not easily moved by ordinary pleas for help. They had grown up in a society where only the strongest survived, and weakness was a lesson learned through harsh experience. But this message was different. It carried a tone of desperation, of genuine fear, that even they could not ignore. These aliens were pleading not just for themselves, but for their entire species. The humans studied the signal, analyzing every detail. They considered the risks carefully. Traveling to an unknown star system, where natural disasters and possible hostile forces awaited, was dangerous, yet something in the signal compelled them. Perhaps it was their own innate curiosity, or the challenge of facing a situation as extreme as the environment they had left behind. Perhaps it was a deep, unspoken code they all shared, to protect life whenever possible, even if it came at great risk. The human leaders convened a council to discuss the response. This was no small decision. Deploying a fleet across light years of space required resources, preparation, and a willingness to face the unknown. Ships had to be reinforced to survive cosmic storms and radiation. Crews had to be briefed and trained for extreme conditions they had never encountered before. Strategy experts ran simulations, trying to predict every possible outcome. And yet, despite all the risks, the decision was unanimous. They would respond, not because they were obligated, but because helping was in their nature. They were known as Deathworlders, feared by many, yet bound by a code that valued life, resilience, and courage above all else. Meanwhile, back on the alien planet, the leaders monitored the incoming fleet's progress with both hope and fear. Their technology allowed them to detect the approaching ships, enormous and powerful vessels unlike anything they had ever built. The humans were arriving not as individuals, but as a coordinated fleet. Each ship designed to endure extreme conditions and execute missions with precision. The alien leaders marveled at the scale of the operation, realizing that these humans were serious, and that their species had the capability and willpower to make a real difference. But doubt lingered. Could beings so fearsome truly be their saviors? History had taught the aliens that powerful civilizations often brought harm rather than help. The journey of the Deathworlder fleet through space was itself a testament to human endurance and ingenuity. Their ships navigated asteroid fields, black holes, and regions of deadly radiation. Every crew member was tested to the limits of physical and mental endurance. They were trained to handle extreme stress, sudden attacks, and environmental hazards that would have incapacitated ordinary beings. Even minor mistakes could result in catastrophic failure. Yet the humans pushed forward, united by their mission and their belief in the value of life. They shared stories from their homeworld, of survival against impossible odds, which kept morale high and reminded them why they were willing to face such dangers as they drew closer to the alien planet. The humans began preparing for immediate action. Their scientists and engineers studied the planet's environmental data, mapping unstable regions, flood zones, and areas of conflict. Medical teams were ready to treat the injured and sick, while military specialists planned strategies to protect civilians from both natural disasters and potential hostile factions. The fleet was a blend of strength, intelligence, and compassion, a force capable of extreme action yet guided by careful judgment. The aliens, watching these preparations, felt a mix of awe and disbelief. They had never imagined such a species existed, humans who could endure the deadliest environments, yet still act with deliberate care and empathy. The situation was still dire, but for the first time in years, there was a tangible hope that survival was possible. The distant gleam of the human fleet approaching their planet represented more than help. It was a symbol of resilience, courage, and the possibility of overcoming insurmountable odds. In the final moments before contact, the alien leaders sent a silent message among themselves. They hoped that these beings, so different and so powerful, could truly understand their plight. And in the cold vastness of space, as the humans' massive ships grew closer and closer, the two civilizations stood on the brink of a historic encounter. One species, desperate and fragile, and the other, fierce yet compassionate, were about to converge in a story that would be remembered across the galaxy. The scene was set. The aliens' planet, scarred and unstable, awaited salvation. The humans, relentless survivors of a death world, were ready to respond. It was the beginning of an unprecedented journey, one that would test limits, forge alliances, and demonstrate that even in the darkest corners of the universe, hope could survive when courage and empathy came together. As the human fleet approached the alien planet, the scale of what was about to happen began to become clear. From orbit, the humans could see the planet's surface, a patchwork of devastation and natural fury. The entire regions had been flattened by storms and earthquakes. Cities lay in ruins, and rivers of mud and debris carved through once thriving farmlands. Smoke rose from areas where fires burned unchecked, while other regions were flooded, with water levels reaching the rooftops of once grand buildings. The human sensors detected pockets of life scattered across the planet, small groups of survivors huddled together, barely managing to protect themselves from the chaos around them. It was a sight both tragic and urgent, one that called for immediate action. The alien leaders, meanwhile, observed the fleet with a mixture of awe, fear, and hope. The ships arriving were massive and unlike anything they had ever built. They glimmered in the planet's atmosphere, moving with precision and purpose. These were not ordinary spacecraft. Every hull, every weapon mount, every sensor had been designed to survive extreme environments, to endure attacks, and to sustain prolonged missions in the harshest regions of space. The aliens whispered among themselves, wondering if these beings were there to help or if their reputation as Deathworlders meant danger was imminent. Stories of humans from other regions of the galaxy had painted them as both fierce and unpredictable. Many feared that humans, when they arrived, could unintentionally or even deliberately harm them. Yet, the humans descended with careful coordination, showing patience and precision rather than chaos or aggression. The arrival of the humans was not subtle. Their fleet stretched across the sky, their ships descending strategically to avoid further damage to already fragile regions. The aliens watched in silence as the humans deployed drones to survey the land. These drones moved swiftly, mapping unstable terrain, damaged infrastructure, locations where survivors were trapped. They relayed information back to the main fleet, allowing human engineers and strategists to begin planning rescue and recovery operations even before touching down. For the aliens, it was both intimidating and mesmerizing. They had never seen technology capable of such detailed, real-time analysis of their world. When the first human landing craft touched the planet's surface, the aliens were struck by the sight of beings adapted to harsh, extreme conditions. The humans wore protective suits designed for survival in toxic environments, but it was their demeanor that stood out. They moved with confidence, purpose, and awareness of their surroundings. Every step, every gesture, showed a combination of experience, training, and intelligence. They were survivors of a death world accustomed to facing threats that would overwhelm most other species, and yet, they carried themselves with restraint, careful not to frighten the already traumatized aliens. The humans wasted no time. As they disembarked, small groups spread out across the planet, prioritizing areas with the highest concentrations of survivors. Rescue operations began immediately. Human medics tended to the injured, administering advanced treatments that healed wounds within hours and stabilized patients who would have otherwise perished. Emergency shelters were constructed using materials designed to withstand storms and earthquakes. Food and water distribution systems were established almost instantly, drawing on stored resources from the fleet and portable processing units that could purify contaminated water. The aliens watched in amazement as these newcomers worked tirelessly, coordinating their efforts with precision and efficiency. But the planet itself posed a constant challenge. The land was unstable, earthquakes shook the ground unpredictably, and massive storms could erupt at any moment. Floodwaters moved with terrifying speed, threatening to sweep away human and alien alike. Despite these dangers, the humans pushed forward. Engineers deployed drones and robotic machines to stabilize weakened structures, reinforce bridges, and even temporarily redirect rivers to prevent catastrophic flooding. Their knowledge of extreme conditions allowed them to act in ways the aliens could not have imagined. The planet, which had seemed uninhabitable and chaotic, began to slowly show signs of order under their guidance. While the humans worked, they also began to interact with the alien population. They understood that saving a civilization was not just about physical survival, it required trust and cooperation. Human leaders spoke with the alien leaders, carefully explaining their methods, plans, and intentions. They listened to the concerns and fears of the alien population, showing patience that belied their deadly reputation. The aliens were astonished by this approach. They had expected conquerors, invaders, or opportunists, yet these humans were here solely to help. Through dialogue, the humans began forming bonds with the alien leaders, teaching them techniques to maintain stability and preparing them to continue some of the work once the fleet departed. Conflict, however, was never far away. Within the alien civilization, certain factions resisted the humans' presence. Some feared that the newcomers would assert control or dominate the planet once it was stabilized. Others were suspicious of their intentions, remembering stories of humans from other regions who had acted aggressively. These factions sometimes sabotaged relief efforts, spreading misinformation, or attempting to block human operations. The Deathworlders, accustomed to hostile environments and treachery, handled these challenges with strategic precision. They avoided unnecessary confrontation, instead using tactics to neutralize threats without bloodshed whenever possible. Their reputation as fierce warriors remained intact, but it became clear that their true power lay not only in combat, but also in problem-solving and diplomacy. As the first days passed, small victories began to accumulate. Flooded villages were cleared and reinforced, the injured were treated and stabilized, and food shortages were addressed. The aliens, initially hesitant, started to participate actively in the recovery efforts. Inspired by the humans' resilience and determination, they learned new skills and techniques that enabled them to contribute meaningfully to their own salvation. The humans did not simply impose solutions, they empowered the aliens, teaching them to survive and thrive even in conditions that had once seemed impossible. One of the most striking aspects of the human response was their ability to adapt. The planet's environment was unpredictable, and plans often had to change on the fly. Storms could destroy infrastructure in hours, and earthquakes could shift entire regions of land. Yet the humans adjusted rapidly. Engineers designed modular structures that could be moved or reinforced as conditions changed. Medics set up mobile hospitals that could be relocated in minutes. Even their fleet, anchored in orbit, was capable of responding instantly to new threats, deploying drones, transport ships, and support systems wherever they were needed most. For the aliens, witnessing such adaptability was eye-opening. They realized that these humans thrived under pressure, and their presence brought not only immediate help but also hope for the long-term survival of their civilization. Over time, a sense of cautious optimism began to emerge. The initial fear of these Deathworlders gave way to gratitude and admiration. The alien population, once fractured and despairing, began to cooperate more fully. Villages and towns started organizing themselves for mutual support, inspired by the humans' example. The once chaotic planet began to show signs of order and recovery, not because the humans forced it, but because they guided and empowered the aliens to take responsibility for their own survival. By the time the first week ended, the aliens had a new perspective on humanity. They saw not just survivors of a death world, but beings capable of compassion, strategy, and cooperation on an extraordinary scale. The initial awe and fear transformed into trust and respect. The humans had arrived not as conquerors but as saviors, blending strength and wisdom in a way that no alien civilization had ever encountered before. This was only the beginning. The humans' work had set the foundation for recovery, but the challenges ahead were still enormous. The planet was far from fully restored, and the rogue factions continued to resist. Yet, the presence of the human fleet had changed everything. Where despair had once ruled, there was now hope. Where fear had once paralyzed, there was determination. That aliens had learned, for the first time in generations, that survival was possible even against seemingly insurmountable odds. As the humans continued their operations, the aliens began to imagine a future that had once seemed impossible. A world where storms could be managed, resources could be distributed fairly, and the population could thrive again. And though the humans would not stay forever, their example planted seeds of resilience and courage that would last for generations. The alien civilization had survived its first encounter with humanity, and in doing so, they began to understand the true meaning of strength, compassion, and cooperation. As the human fleet continued its operations on the alien planet, the initial phase of rescue and stabilization had shown promising results. Villages that were once flooded had begun to dry out, temporary shelters were standing strong, and the alien survivors were starting to gain confidence in the humans' abilities. However, the challenges they faced were far from over. The planet itself was a hostile environment, and the humans quickly realized that no amount of technology or planning could completely eliminate the dangers they would encounter. Each day brought new complications, testing their skills, patience, and ingenuity in ways that no previous mission had demanded. One of the first major challenges came from the planet's unpredictable weather patterns. Storms that lasted weeks could appear without warning, tearing through areas that the humans and aliens thought were secure. Rivers swelled rapidly, sometimes in regions where previous flood control measures had been set up, washing away newly built shelters and destroying food supplies. Entire hillsides collapsed in landslides, swallowing villages and cutting off access to survivors. The humans, however, had faced far harsher environments on their homeworld, where the ground could shift violently without warning, and the air could become poisonous within moments. They quickly adapted, deploying mobile response teams equipped with powerful drones and robotic machinery capable of navigating unstable terrain. These machines could lift heavy debris, reinforce collapsing buildings, and even construct temporary bridges in a matter of hours despite their advanced equipment. The humans knew they could not rely solely on technology. They trained and coordinated with the alien survivors, teaching them how to identify dangerous zones, how to reinforce their own shelters, and how to assist with rescues. The aliens were amazed by this approach. They had expected humans to simply take over and dominate, yet these visitors treated them as partners rather than subordinates. Slowly, trust began to build. Alien families who had hidden from outsiders for weeks stepped forward, allowing the humans to guide them to safety. Villages that had been isolated during the chaos were connected through communication relays, giving the aliens a sense of unity that they had not felt in years. The planet's unstable environment, however, was only one of many challenges. The alien civilization itself was fractured, and certain factions were hostile to the humans' presence. These factions feared that the newcomers were not rescuers, but conquerors who would assert control once the planet was stabilized. Some had experienced centuries of internal conflict, and the idea of trusting outsiders was nearly impossible for them. These rogue groups carried weapons and occasionally ambushed human teams, sabotaging rescue efforts and spreading misinformation among the alien population. The humans, trained to deal with hostility and unpredictability, responded strategically. They did not react with violence immediately. Instead, they used careful observation and intelligence gathering to understand the intentions of these groups. When confrontation became unavoidable, they acted decisively but with precision, neutralizing threats without unnecessary casualties. This approach astonished the aliens. The humans were deadly warriors, yet their actions were guided by a strict code of restraint, showing that their power was tempered by wisdom. Meanwhile, the humans' engineering teams worked tirelessly to stabilize the planet's infrastructure. Entire cities had been destroyed, and vital systems such as water purification, energy generation, and food production had collapsed. Using advanced technology salvaged from their fleet and portable modules that could be assembled quickly, they began to rebuild. Water filtration plants were installed along major rivers to ensure a continuous supply of clean water. Emergency power grids were set up to restore electricity to essential facilities. Fields devastated by floods were rapidly reconditioned with nutrient-rich soil and irrigation systems, allowing crops to be planted almost immediately. The humans' ability to multitask on such a massive scale impressed even their own leaders, who had never undertaken a recovery operation in such extreme and chaotic conditions. As the planet slowly began to recover, human medical teams faced another urgent challenge. Many survivors were suffering from injuries sustained during the natural disasters, while others were ill due to contaminated water, malnutrition, or lack of shelter. Disease spread quickly in some regions, threatening to undo the humans' progress. The medics set up mobile hospitals that could reach even the most remote settlements. They treated injuries with advanced techniques that allowed rapid healing, administered vaccines to prevent outbreaks, and educated the aliens on hygiene practices to minimize future health risks. Perhaps more importantly, they provided emotional support. The survivors had endured trauma beyond comprehension, and the presence of humans who could empathize and offer hope had a profound psychological impact. While the humans and cooperating aliens worked tirelessly to rebuild, the planet itself continued to challenge them. Volcanic eruptions in certain regions threatened to release deadly gases and molten lava, while frequent earthquakes made any construction fragile. The humans had to constantly reassess their plans, moving critical operations when new dangers arose. Their adaptability became a key strength. On their homeworld, they had learned to thrive in constant danger, and this experience proved invaluable. Every unexpected challenge was met not with panic, but with careful calculation, teamwork, and determination. This resilience inspired the alien population. They began to adopt similar approaches, learning to anticipate risks and respond with practical solutions rather than fear. The alien leadership also faced internal struggles during this phase. Some leaders were eager to cooperate fully with the humans, recognizing the opportunity to save their civilization. Others remained skeptical, questioning whether allowing outsiders such influence was wise. These internal conflicts created tension and slowed some recovery efforts. The humans, understanding the delicate social dynamics, acted as mediators. They facilitated meetings, encouraged open communication, and provided examples of how collaboration could benefit everyone. Slowly, even the most resistant leaders began to see the advantages of working with the humans. A sense of unity began to emerge, though it remained fragile. Amid these challenges, the humans demonstrated extraordinary leadership. Their fleet commanders coordinated multiple operations simultaneously, ensuring that rescue missions, engineering projects, and medical efforts did not interfere with one another. Their crews were trained to anticipate problems before they occurred, and their rapid response teams could be redeployed within hours to address emerging crises. This level of organization, combined with the humans' physical endurance and technical expertise, that allowed them to operate efficiently even under conditions that would have paralyzed most other civilizations. Despite the hardships, small successes began to accumulate. Villages previously cut off from the rest of the planet were connected through makeshift bridges and communication networks. Flooded farmlands were transformed into fertile fields ready for planting. Injured survivors were stabilized and integrated into communities, and disease outbreaks were contained before they could spread widely. These victories, though incremental, had a powerful psychological impact. The alien population, which had been demoralized and hopeless, began to see that survival was possible. They observed humans performing feats they could not have imagined, lifting enormous debris, constructing functional infrastructure in days, and coordinating complex operations with precision. Slowly, fear began to give way to trust, and distrust began to evolve into cooperation. That as weeks passed, the humans' presence reshaped the social fabric of the alien civilization. Communities that had been isolated and distrustful of one another began to communicate and coordinate their recovery efforts. Alien children watched in awe as humans demonstrated techniques for building, farming, and protecting themselves. Elders who had lived through decades of chaos marveled at the humans' endurance and ingenuity. Even skeptical factions could not ignore the results of the humans' work. The planet was visibly improving, and lives were being saved in ways previously thought impossible. However, the most significant challenge was yet to come. The rogue factions that had resisted the humans' help were not going to yield easily. They had their own agenda, motivated by fear, distrust, and the desire for power. These groups began organizing coordinated attacks on human operations, attempting to sabotage infrastructure, steal resources, and intimidate the local population. The humans, however, had anticipated such resistance. They deployed advanced surveillance systems and strategic teams capable of rapid intervention. When the rogue factions made their moves, the humans acted swiftly, neutralizing threats while minimizing harm to civilians. The aliens began to see that these so-called Deathworlders were not only physically formidable but also possessed tactical intelligence and moral restraint. Through all of this, the human approach remained consistent. They focused on empowering the aliens, teaching them to survive and thrive even under extreme conditions. They encouraged the population to take part in rebuilding efforts, to learn techniques for agriculture, engineering, and healthcare, and to develop their own strategies for defending against hostile factions. The humans understood that true survival required more than temporary fixes. It required knowledge, resilience, and the ability to adapt. By sharing their expertise, they planted the seeds for a civilization that could endure and flourish long after the human fleet departed. The alien planet, though still fragile, had begun to transform. Natural disasters continued to strike, and internal conflicts remained a threat. But the combination of human guidance and growing alien resilience allowed the population to withstand challenges that would have previously been catastrophic. The humans had proven not only their strength but their ability to inspire hope, unity, and cooperation in a civilization on the brink of collapse. It was a turning point. The aliens began to see the humans not as outsiders or conquerors but as saviors who had arrived at the most desperate moment. Their presence had changed the trajectory of an entire civilization, demonstrating that, even in the face of overwhelming adversity, skill, courage, and compassion could create remarkable results. And while the planet's future was still uncertain, the work accomplished during this phase laid a foundation for recovery, resilience, and a new era of cooperation between two very different species. The efforts of the human fleet and the alien survivors had begun to pay off in ways that no one could have imagined at the start. Where there was once despair, there was now cautious optimism. Flooded villages had been drained and rebuilt. Bridges connected isolated communities, and food supplies were beginning to stabilize. The planet, though still scarred by destruction, was slowly regaining a sense of order. Yet, as the aliens were learning, recovery on such a devastated world was never linear. Every step forward came with challenges, and the humans were fully aware that their work was far from complete. One of the first major turning points came when the rogue factions, the groups that had resisted cooperation and attempted sabotage, escalated their efforts. They had spent weeks observing the humans and learning from their movements. Now, emboldened, they launched a coordinated attack aimed at destroying critical infrastructure that the humans had worked tirelessly to build. This included water purification stations, food storage facilities, and temporary power grids. The intent was clear: to destabilize the planet again, to remind the population that survival was still uncertain, and perhaps to assert dominance over a civilization they no longer fully controlled. The humans, anticipating that this day would come, were ready. Scouts and surveillance drones had tracked suspicious movements, and response teams were already positioned in vulnerable areas. When the rogue factions made their move, the humans acted with precision, unlike typical military responses, which might have resulted in widespread destruction. The humans focused on neutralizing the threat quickly and efficiently. Small teams moved with speed, disarming traps, rerouting attacks, and capturing aggressors without causing unnecessary harm to civilians. The alien population, who had been hiding in fear, witnessed the humans' methodical approach and began to understand that these were not mere warriors, they were problem solvers with extraordinary skill and strategic intelligence. At the same time, the humans continued their work in stabilizing the planet's environment. The natural disasters that had plagued the world did not cease. Earthquakes still shook the ground, storms still battered the coasts, and volcanic activity remained unpredictable. Yet, the humans adapted to each situation with remarkable ingenuity. They deployed mobile flood barriers and temporary dams to redirect rivers, reinforced buildings with materials capable of withstanding seismic activity, and used atmospheric monitors to predict and mitigate storm damage. The aliens, who had previously relied on luck and prayer, we began to see that survival required planning, adaptation, and decisive action. Another critical turning point was the discovery of hidden areas of devastation. While surveying the planet, human reconnaissance teams found entire regions that had been cut off from previous rescue operations. These areas were even more severely affected, with survivors trapped under debris or living in areas contaminated by toxic gases. The humans moved swiftly, employing both machines and hand crews to reach those in need. They worked around the clock, sometimes risking their own safety to save lives. The aliens, observing these efforts, were filled with a growing sense of awe and gratitude. They realized that the humans' determination was unmatched, and that no obstacle, natural or social, could deter them from their mission. During this phase, the human leaders also focused on training and empowering the alien population. They recognized that for long-term survival, the aliens needed to learn how to protect themselves and their world. Teams of humans taught agricultural techniques, engineering practices, and disaster response methods adapted to the planet's unique conditions. They trained the aliens to construct buildings that could withstand earthquakes and storms, manage water resources efficiently, and maintain essential infrastructure even in times of crisis. These lessons were not imposed but shared collaboratively, allowing the alien population to actively participate in the recovery of their own planet. This approach gradually transformed the aliens' mindset, where once they had been passive and fearful, they now took initiative and developed confidence in their ability to survive and rebuild. Amid these efforts, the humans faced their greatest test when a rogue faction attempted to seize control of the central city, the hub of the planet's recovery operations. The faction believed that by taking the city, they could dominate the rebuilding process and impose their own rule. The humans, aware that this confrontation could lead to significant casualties and undo much of their progress, planned a careful response. Instead of direct confrontation, they used strategic tactics to outmaneuver the aggressors. Drones monitored movements in real time, rapid response teams intercepted the attackers, and psychological strategies were employed to demoralize the faction without causing unnecessary bloodshed. The operation was a success. The rogue faction was neutralized, and control of the city remained in the hands of the cooperative alien leaders. This event marked a turning point, not only in terms of security but also in perception. The aliens began to understand the full extent of human capabilities, their skill and strategy, their restraint in the use of force, and their commitment to saving lives rather than seeking conquest. The humans' actions demonstrated that true strength was not measured by fear or dominance, but by the ability to solve problems, protect others, and inspire cooperation. This realization had a profound effect on the alien population. They began to see humans as allies and mentors rather than outsiders, and trust in the human fleet grew exponentially. Simultaneously, the planet itself began to show signs of long-term recovery. Flooded lands were drained and reinforced. Crops planted with advanced techniques grew rapidly, and water purification systems provided clean water for entire regions. Cities that had been destroyed were rebuilt with stronger, more resilient materials. That aliens, now actively involved in these projects, learned skills that would allow them to maintain and improve these systems independently in the future. That humans did not simply provide temporary solutions. They created lasting infrastructure that would support generations to come. The turning point was also emotional and psychological. Many aliens had lost hope over the years, believing that their civilization was doomed. But the humans' tireless efforts, courage, and empathy began to change that mindset. Survivors who had once hidden in fear now participated in rebuilding efforts, assisting in engineering projects, and providing aid to their neighbors. Children watched humans with admiration, learning techniques and strategies that would help them survive in the future. Even the previously hostile factions began to recognize that cooperation was more beneficial than resistance. A sense of community, long absent on the planet, started to take root. At the same time, the humans prepared for the eventual withdrawal of their fleet. They knew that their presence could not be permanent and that the aliens needed to be capable of sustaining themselves. Training programs intensified, and the humans focused on leaving behind a population capable of managing disasters, infrastructure, and governance. Leadership councils were established among the aliens, composed of individuals who had shown wisdom, courage, and adaptability during the crisis. These councils were designed to maintain order, resolve conflicts, and ensure that the planet's recovery continued even after the humans departed. The humans also took steps to strengthen alliances with neighboring civilizations. They communicated with distant species who had previously ignored the alien distress calls, sharing knowledge and resources to create a network of support. This interstellar cooperation ensured that the planet would not face future crises alone. The aliens, once isolated and desperate, now had connections and allies across the galaxy, a safety net that had been unimaginable before the humans arrived. The alien planet had undergone a remarkable transformation. It was still fragile, and challenges remained, but the progress made was undeniable. Cities had been stabilized, natural disasters mitigated, and rogue factions neutralized. The alien population had learned to work together, to protect their communities, and to maintain the infrastructure necessary for survival. That humans' influence had reshaped not only the physical environment, but also the social and psychological fabric of the civilization. Trust, cooperation, and hope had replaced fear, fragmentation, and despair. In this turning point, the alien leaders came to a profound realization. They understood that their civilization had been saved not just by the humans' technology or strength, but by their ability to inspire and empower others. The humans had faced dangers far greater than any the aliens had ever known. Yet they had acted with discipline, compassion, and strategic intelligence. They had not simply imposed solutions, they had taught, guided, and mentored, allowing the aliens to take control of their own destiny. The result was a partnership that transformed a world on the brink of destruction into one capable of survival and future growth. This phase, more than any before it, demonstrated the full extent of human adaptability, courage, and moral strength. They had faced not only the planet's natural hazards but also the complexities of alien society, internal conflict, and mistrust. Their success lay in their ability to combine intelligence with empathy, force with restraint, and action with guidance. For the aliens, the experience was nothing short of revolutionary. They had learned that even the most terrifying and seemingly unstoppable beings could be protectors, teachers, and allies when driven by purpose and guided by ethics. The alien civilization had reached a critical moment of transformation. The planet was stabilized, rogue factions had been neutralized, and the population was learning to manage its own recovery. The humans' role had shifted from active intervention to mentorship, preparing the aliens for a future in which they could sustain themselves. With the alien planet finally showing clear signs of recovery, the humans from the Deathworld began preparing to leave. The long and grueling mission had taken weeks, perhaps months, depending on how one measured the intense efforts and constant dangers they had faced. Yet, even as they prepared for departure, their work was far from over. They knew that leaving too soon, without ensuring the aliens were capable of maintaining the progress made, could undo everything. The final days were therefore a mixture of logistics, training, and emotional farewells, each moment carrying immense significance for both humans and aliens alike. The alien population had changed profoundly since the humans first arrived. Once terrified, disorganized, and fractured, they were now coordinated, confident, and hopeful. Villages and towns that had been isolated for decades now shared communication networks, emergency protocols, and a common understanding of survival strategies. Water systems, food distribution networks, and medical facilities were stabilized and, in many cases, improved with innovations introduced by humans. The aliens had begun to see their planet not as a doomed wasteland but as a place with potential, capable of supporting life and growth once more. This transformation was no small feat. It was the result of both human intervention and the willingness of the alien population to learn, adapt, and cooperate. During this phase, humans focused on empowering the alien leadership. The councils that had been established were strengthened with ongoing mentorship. Humans provided guidance on governance, conflict resolution, and resource management, helping leaders plan for potential future crises. They taught the importance of cooperation between factions, highlighting how unity could prevent further internal conflicts. The lessons went beyond logistics and politics. that humans emphasized resilience, courage, and adaptability, values that had allowed their own civilization to survive in one of the deadliest planets known to the galaxy. These teachings were designed to endure far longer than temporary fixes or rebuilt structures. They were meant to instill a mindset that would guide the aliens for generations. One of the most profound moments came as the humans coordinated a series of training exercises with the alien population. These exercises were not simulations but real-world applications of survival, engineering, and disaster response techniques. Alien teams were guided to construct shelters capable of withstanding earthquakes and storms, repair and maintain energy and water systems, and manage large-scale agricultural operations. Medics trained local personnel to provide emergency care and manage disease outbreaks. Engineers worked side by side with the aliens to stabilize mountainsides, redirect rivers, and reinforce key infrastructure. Each successful completion of a task was a testament to the aliens' growing competence and confidence. The humans knew that the future of this planet now rested in capable hands, and that their efforts had planted the seeds for long-term sustainability. While physical recovery was critical, that humans also focused on the social and emotional health of the alien population. Years of chaos and disaster had left many traumatized. Survivors had lost family members, homes, and a sense of security. The humans understood that rebuilding civilization required more than repairing infrastructure. It required healing hearts and minds. Teams of human psychologists and counselors worked with alien communities, helping them process their grief and teaching coping strategies. Children were provided safe spaces to play and learn, helping them regain a sense of normalcy and hope. Communities came together for ceremonies marking the planet's recovery milestones, celebrating the efforts of both humans and aliens, and reinforcing bonds that had been formed during the crisis. The rogue factions that had previously resisted cooperation were carefully reintegrated into society. The humans facilitated mediation sessions, showing that reconciliation was possible and that collaboration would benefit all. Some of these factions eventually joined reconstruction efforts, contributing labor, knowledge, and insight, witnessing their former adversaries working alongside them. Many aliens began to internalize lessons about unity and shared responsibility. The planet's social fabric, once fragmented by fear and mistrust, was now weaving together into something stronger and more resilient. On parallel, the humans prepared the alien civilization for external threats. Though the immediate crisis had been addressed, the galaxy remained unpredictable, and future dangers were inevitable. Humans trained alien defense teams, teaching them strategies for protecting infrastructure, monitoring environmental hazards, and coordinating rapid responses to emergencies. Communication networks established by the humans allowed for early warning of natural disasters or potential attacks from other civilizations. By the time the fleet prepared to depart, the aliens had gained both knowledge and confidence that they could safeguard themselves against future challenges. The farewell was an emotional and symbolic event. The alien leaders, now empowered and competent, thanked the humans with heartfelt speeches, expressing gratitude for saving not only lives but an entire civilization. Survivors, young and old, stood together to witness the human fleet's departure, a moment that would be remembered in stories for generations. The humans, in turn, expressed pride in the aliens' courage, resilience, and willingness to learn. For the first time in the galaxy, two civilizations, vastly different in origin and experience, shared a profound mutual respect born from struggle, cooperation, and survival. Before leaving, the humans left behind advanced infrastructure and resources, carefully distributed to ensure long-term stability. Water purification plants, agricultural hubs, medical facilities, and emergency shelters were all fully operational. Education centers and training academies were established to continue teaching essential skills. Even communication networks were left in place, linking communities across the planet and allowing them to coordinate in times of crisis. The humans' focus was not on dominance or control, but on leaving a legacy of knowledge, capability, and hope. The departure itself was a spectacle that few aliens would ever forget. The massive human fleet ascended from the planet, moving in formation with precision and grace. Ships that had once seemed intimidating now carried a sense of reassurance, symbolizing the protection, guidance, and friendship the humans had provided. The aliens watched in awe, understanding that these beings, known across the galaxy as Deathworlders for their toughness, had chosen to act with compassion, intelligence, and discipline. It was a lesson in strength tempered by wisdom, a model for how power could be used responsibly and effectively even after the humans were gone. The effects of their intervention were immediate and long. Communities that had been fractured now cooperated to manage resources and maintain infrastructure. Leaders applied strategies learned from the humans to prevent future conflicts and resolve disputes peacefully. Agricultural systems produced food reliably. Medical facilities addressed health needs efficiently, and emergency response teams were ready to handle new challenges. Where despair had once ruled, hope now flourished. The aliens had learned not only how to survive but how to thrive in a world that had once seemed impossible to live in. Perhaps the most enduring impact of the humans' presence was psychological and cultural. The alien civilization had witnessed firsthand what courage, resilience, and collaboration could achieve. Stories of the humans' deeds, tireless work during disasters, precise handling of rogue factions, and compassionate guidance spread rapidly across the planet. These tales inspired a new generation of aliens, encouraging them to value knowledge, discipline, empathy, and cooperation. Young aliens in particular looked to the humans as role models, eager to adopt the skills and mindset that had allowed a race from a deadly planet to save an entire civilization. In the months following the humans' departure, the aliens continued to thrive. The system's infrastructure and strategies left behind allowed them to manage natural disasters more effectively than ever before. They had become self-reliant, confident in their ability to respond to crises, and capable of sustaining and improving the progress achieved with human guidance. Communities that had once been isolated and fearful now worked together, united by shared experience and a common vision for the future. The aliens had not only survived, they had grown stronger, wiser, and more cohesive as a society. Ultimately, this story became more than a tale of survival. It became a story of transformation, of how courage, intelligence, and compassion could change the fate of an entire civilization. The humans from the Deathworld had faced extreme risks, navigated unpredictable dangers, and confronted hostile factions. Yet their mission had succeeded not merely through force, but through strategy, empathy, and mentorship. They had shown that true strength lay in empowering others, fostering cooperation, and instilling resilience. The aliens had learned that hope, when paired with guidance and determination, could overcome even the direst circumstances. In the end, the alien planet stood as a testament to what could be achieved when courage, skill, and compassion converged. The humans' full fleet had responded to a desperate plea for help, and through their extraordinary efforts, an entire civilization had been given a second chance. The aliens had learned, adapted, and grown, carrying forward the lessons of survival, unity, and resilience. And though the humans were now distant stars away, their impact remained a legacy of hope, courage, and the enduring belief that even the deadliest worlds could be saved when determination and empathy worked together.